it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's welcome in our Utah Mammoth insider, Cole Bagley. It's all brought to you by Utah First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. What's going on, Cole?
How are you, Ben?
I've got a question for you. Is it legal to shoot the puck on the power play, or are you just supposed to pass the puck around for 2 minutes? Because that's what I saw a lot of last night.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, but before the game kind of flipped on its head, I was actually doing, part of my hat trick. I was writing about how the power play has made a lot of progress from November to December. And to be honest, it has. It was their power play in November was like 5.7%, and in December it's at about 18%. So month over month, like up 13%, that's a pretty big jump. But then, things kind of went south. They had several more power plays. And while it looked really pretty in terms of moving the puck, if you can't get it across the goal line, then it's all for nothing, like you said. So, yeah, it was an interesting one last night. It's probably the best the power play has looked without scoring, which is definitely frustrating for a lot of Mammoth fans.
Early in the season, I found myself yelling at the television a lot because it seems like Nick Schmaltz would be, especially in the power play, wide open in front of the net and would look to pass. I mean, wouldn't even look at the net. It's just like shoot the puck. And I think we saw that again last night. Now, as I was doing that early in the year, Nick Schmaltz then broke out and had that incredible run, and I thought that really kind of spurned their or spurred their 7-game winning streak that they had early in the season. My question is, does it still feel like they're close? Like, does it feel like a breakthrough is possible for this team, or are you getting to the point where you think it's just not going to happen this year?
I think a breakthrough is possible. I'm just not entirely sure what it's going to take. When I was looking at the game last night, and then I looked at their record over the course of the season, in games this year that have been decided by a single goal, that means I'm not counting games that have included 2-goal losses, empty netters. So just games simply decided by one goal, 2-1, 3-2, 4-3. Utah has lost 11 times. Now, 3 of those are in overtime, obviously, but then there's 8 more of their 19 losses in regulation have been by one goal. So they're so close. And that, again, that's not even counting games that, added an empty netter. So there's probably another 7 or 8 games that have been decided that way. So they're losing so many one-goal games, and you kind of have to ask yourself the question of, what is the difference? Why are they being exploited 9 out of 10 times by making one simple mistake in a third period or whenever it happens, as opposed to being the ones, doing the exploiting, right? Making sure that they're playing sound hockey and not making mistakes that are costing them late in these games, but it just continues to happen. So a breakthrough, I think, is possible. It's just, what is it exactly going to take? I'm not sure, and obviously I don't think the Mammoth have figured that one out either.
Vanacek did not look great, especially in the third period there with the 2 Stamkos goals, but you have mentioned maybe looking to add talent at the goaltender position. Is that enough to give them just a little bit of an edge? Like, how much better do they have to get to reach their goal of making the playoffs this season?
That's a really good question. I do think that, potentially looking in the trade market for another goaltender would probably be smart. It's tough with Vanacek because he's only played, I think last night was his 11th game. And for goaltenders, Utah's played they played 40 games, so he's only been given an opportunity in 11 of those, which means, Vamelka's played in the other 29. It's really hard to get into a groove, to settle into your game, to feel confident between the pipes when you've only played in 11 and you've lost 9 of those. So in terms of what they need to do, we've talked about it quite a bit over the last few weeks, is, they need to continue to keep their head above water. They need to make sure they're probably winning 50 or 60% of these games until the Olympic break, because then, if you can get Logan Cooley back, if maybe you can make a few, minor adjustments via the trade market, maybe you can bring in a top 6 type center or a goaltender that can maybe make up those differences. Because like they talked about, they're losing so many games by just one goal. It's not like they're getting, blown out. It's not like they're losing by 3 or 4 where you just kind of put your hands up and go, man, this team is terrible. No, they're really good, but they're just not quite good enough to win the tight games to help put themselves in a position to be in a playoff spot.
We have seen improved play from Dylan Guenther again. It seems like he is back. He's been very active. What have you seen from him, especially in the absence of Logan Cooley?
Yeah, I'd say that, since Logan Cooley went down, Guenther has arguably been the best player on the team and stepped up more than anybody. In the 10 or 11 games since Cooley went down, Gunther's got points in 7 of those. I believe he's got 10 total points. He's got a handful of game winners and OT winners, and that one pass to Keller on the OT winner against Winnipeg. He's just been more assertive. I think he's just played with a little bit more energy, a little bit more urgency. He's scoring in a lot of different ways, whether it's last night where, he's going right at the net and, kind of scoring a greasy goal, or, he's helping his teammates out and set him up like he did, again, last night, a gorgeous pass to Frank Peterka on the back door for an easy tap. And to me, it's just, he's elevated his awareness, he's elevated his urgency, and he's being rewarded with a lot of points right now.
The last time it seemed like things were dire, and I don't think they're quite as dire as they were a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month ago for the Mammoth, but they did make some changes to the roster, and they brought up Maverick Lamoureux, and they brought up Daniil Boot, and they sent a couple of players down. How have those young players performed, in your opinion? Do you think they're getting better? Do you think that's been a help? Do you think it's done what they've intended?
Yeah, I really like Daniil Boot. I mean, Simashev is obviously still in the AHL. Maverick Lamoureux was just on a short stint with the team because they had some defensemen on IR and had some injuries, but, Oli Bonda came back and, Juuso Välimäki came back. And so, Utah had to send Maverick Lamoureux back down. I think he was great. I think he played a lot better. And I think it was like 4 or 5 games that he participated in. What I liked about Mav's game was, a year ago, it felt like he was trying to do too much. It felt like he was really trying to play outside of his game by trying to be more offensive-minded than he really is. And not that Mav can't necessarily be that, but it was almost like he was trying to simply do that, which cost him time and again. He was caught pinching a lot of times. He gave up a lot of odd man rushes. He'd sit in the box, whereas this year he's really stuck to his own identity, which is just being a true defensive defenseman. He's got the size, he's got the reach, he can close down space really well, and that's what he did, during this opportunity with the Mammoth earlier this month. And then as for Daniil Boot, I really liked what I've seen from him. I think he's potentially ahead of schedule in terms of his development. Coming into this year, I think there was a pretty big belief that, Simashev would be the one coming in and asserting himself and staying with the team, whereas Boot would probably need a little bit more development in the AHL. And obviously things started off, I think, where they thought they would, but then Simashev started to struggle with his game, so they had to send him down. Boot was excelling in the AHL, so they had to bring him up. And, with Boot, he's got incredible size, which I think this team greatly lacks. He's one of the biggest players on the ice every time he's out there. He's been a menace in front of the net. What I want to see him do better, though, is I'd like to see him be able to finish his opportunities. He had 2 really good opportunities last night. Pass from Michael Carcone right on the back door on a 2-on-1 opportunity, and he couldn't put it away. That's potentially a goal that changes the outcome of the game. So I think for Boot, it's to continue to do those things that he's doing, but to hopefully put more of a finishing touch on those chances.
World Juniors are also going on right now, as you have to track a little bit more than just the pro team or the highest level team in the NHL. Who has been playing in the World Juniors, specifically Team Canada, and how they looked?
Yeah, the Mammoth have, I think, 7 prospects playing in the World Juniors right now, which is tied for the most in the National Hockey League, alongside, I believe, the Nashville Predators. And it's, not to say that the ones not on Team Canada aren't, good players, but the best Mammoth prospects are playing for Team Canada. You've got TJ Ginla, you got Caleb Denoyer, and you got Cole Baudouin. TJ Ginla has been fantastic. He's got several goals, a couple points. I think TJ is having the season that the Mammoth were really hoping and expecting from him following his injury. He had a decent training camp. He didn't prove that he was quite NHL ready. So what has he done? He's gone back to the juniors. He's putting up 2 or 3 points per game, and then he goes into World Juniors for Team Canada, and he's definitely been a standout with his ability to score and to get to the net and to find teammates. As for Caleb Denoyer, I believe he registered a point last night. It was a really nice play where he kind of demonstrated his elite vision and his silky smooth hands to navigate through the offensive zone and put one in the back of the net. Cole Beaudoin, he's been good. He's a different player, right? He's kind of a bigger body. He's more of a workhorse. He's going to, battle in the dirty areas. He's going to, try and help win you face-off. So for the most part, I think, Utah's prospects have had a good showing, especially the ones playing for Team Canada.
Cole, what's coming up? You've got a 3-game road trip to open the new year, and then back home for some games for the Mammoth.
Yeah, so they're doing their New York trip right now, so they're going to go take on the Islanders, the Devils, and the Rangers. Like I said earlier, at this point, Utah, they really need to be at a minimum, I think, winning every other game. You really got to be pulling in points at about 50 to 60% of these games right now to just keep your head above water. And we'll see what happens. They played a lot of road games. I think they played the first or second most road games in the National Hockey League to this point in the year. And now, that home schedule is kind of going to soften up for them. I think they're home for 7 straight here in January. There's a lot of winnable games. You're playing teams like Ottawa and St. Louis and Columbus and Seattle. Toronto's had some struggles. They do have to play Dallas and Philadelphia, who are, Dallas is one of the better teams in the NHL, and Philly's had a really good year in the Eastern Conference. But this is, Utah has talked about for a lot of the season is getting to this point in the schedule, right? Like the first half of this season was very heavy in terms of, games on the road. It was very challenging, especially with the condensed schedule in terms of, playing almost every other night, especially in December and late November. They played so many games. And so this is where it softens up a bit. This is an opportunity to keep their heads above water, to win some games at home, and to keep fighting. And I think that's really what they're trying to do right now is to just stay alive. And so if they can do that, they can get to the Olympic break, still in the race, and then hopefully get some reinforcements. This team is going to have a chance to make a push.
Our conversation with Cole is brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Cole, great stuff. Look for your coverage coming up in the new year.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
There he is, Cole Bagley. A very happy new year to Cole and his coverage of the Utah Mammoth. Read it at KSLSports.com. It is time to give away some Utah Jazz tickets. It is a Win Ticket Tuesday or a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Be the 12th caller through right now, 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-ZONE. Win a pair of tickets to see the Jazz take on the Dallas Mavericks coming up Thursday, January 8th at the Delta Center at 7 p.m. 801-575-ZONE. Be the 12th caller through right now. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.